Today everyone, today we will talk about developing the research study. Planning for research. The first question that a researcher will ask is, where do I begin? Lydia and Omerod state, by asking questions, we strike the first spark, igniting a chain reaction that leads to a research process. An inquisitive mind is the beginning of the research. There are two types of reasoning, deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is also called systematic logic. It is developed by Aristotle and it is characterized by use of syllogism. A syllogism starts with a basic premise which is then logically applied to a particular case. Inductive reasoning, it proceeds from particular instances to general principles or from facts to theories. Deductive reasoning works from more general to more specific, whereas inductive reasoning works the other way, moving from specific observations to broader generalizations and theories. Scientific method of inquiry. Scientific method or the scientific method of inquiry or SMI. This approach the discovery of knowledge which arose during the Renaissance period and gained major support in the 16th century. Liddy's scientific method of inquiry. First, identifying the problem that will provide the goal of the research. Second, gathering the data needed to resolve the problem. And third, developing a tentative hypothesis. And the last one is empirically testing the hypothesis by analyzing the data. Bobby's basic steps of scientific method. First, identification of an idea or interest. Second, theory construction. Third, derivation of theoretical hypothesis or expectations. Fourth, operationalization of concepts. And the last one is testing of hypotheses. General outline of research. First, typically begins with a question. Second, identify the problem that this question represents. Third, identify the specific research problem. Fourth, develop a plan for attempting to resolve this problem. Fifth, deal with facts and their meanings. Sixth, keep in mind that this process is almost always circular in nature. General criteria for basic research. First, universality. The study should be researchable by any other qualified investigator. Second, replication. The research study is repeatable. Third is control. It relates to the parameters of the research study. Fourth, measurement. Constitute the observation and recording of phenomena. 5 components of Hernan's criteria for basic research. First, reflective inquiry. Second, procedures or research design and data collection methods. Third, data gathering, processing, and analysis. Fourth, reliability and validity. And the last is presentation of the research finding. Identification of the problem. The research problem is essentially the topic to be investigated or what needs to be known. It is assumed that one plans a research study because he or she has identified some problem that is worthy of investigation. Einstein and Enfield have been quoted as saying, "The formulation of a problem is often more essential than its solution." Liddy and Omerod stated, "The heart of every research project is the problem. It is paramount in importance to the success of the research effort." Characteristics of problems suitable for basic research. First, the problem should represent conceptual thinking, inquiry, and insight, not merely activity. Second, the variables related to the problem should represent some sort of meaningful relationship. Last but not the least, the problem should point to research that is manageable. Of the problem. The problem should be written in complete grammatical sentences, not in mere text. Problem should be stated as precisely as possible. The characteristics of a researchable problem. It is also important that it be stated responsibly. It should not be so broad in scope that it will be unmanageable. Based on lectures by David Lark, they suggest writing 3 short sentences. First, the lead-in. Second, a statement about originality. And the last one is justification. The problem is what the research is about, and the purpose is why the research is conducted. The problem is ineffective and first proposition. Identifying subproblems. Researchers should be amenable to some realistic research method and suggest adequate data with which to resolve the problem. The subproblems should, when combined, equal the whole of the main problem. The researcher should also consider providing both conceptual and operational definitions for important terms related to the study. The researcher should develop one or more hypotheses to further limit the problem and the project. There are 2 basic related steps in identifying subproblems. First, the researcher should break the main problem down into its components, and the second, he or she should identify the words that indicate a need for a collection and interpretation data. Role of theory in the design of research. We should consider the role of theory in the design of a research study. But before discussing theory, the term meta-theory should be considered briefly, although it does not appear much in LIS literature. Meta-theory can be seen as the philosophy behind theory, the fundamental set of ideas about how phenomena of interest in a particular field should be thought about and researched. The main value of theory in research derives from its ability to summarize existing knowledge, to provide an explanation for observed events and relationships, and to predict the occurrence of as yet unobserved events and relationships on the basis of explanatory principles embodied in the theory. Definition of theory. Bobby defines theory as a systematic explanation for the observations that relate to a particular aspect of life. Goldor defines theory as a deductively connected set of laws, the logical form of an explanation, and with all statements as generalizations. The formulation of theories. In many cases, they must be developed or built. Goldor defines theory building as the accumulation of empirical findings and the development of a system of intermeshing hypotheses concerning the relationships. Formulating hypothesis. Definition of hypothesis. The second major step in the standard scientific method of inquiry is the formulation of one or more theoretical hypotheses. Bobby defines the hypothesis as a specified testable expectation about empirical reality that follows from a more general proposition. Sources of hypothesis. One of the most convenient and logical sources of hypothesis is a theory, since it can be considered to be a broad hypothesis or a set of sub-hypotheses. Pilot or exploratory studies also are good sources. Pilot or exploratory studies also are good sources of hypothesis. In fact, experience, the review of related literature, or a pilot study must precede the formulation and refinement of the hypothesis. Developing the hypothesis. The formulation of a hypothesis ideally begins with consideration of a theory, and more specifically, one or more components of a theory. The basis for the hypothesis almost always rests on one or more assumptions. Goldor points out that having identified the hypothesis and basic assumptions, it should then be possible to develop additional explanations of relationship between or more the variables in specific situations. Variables include the following: First, intervening variable. Second, antecedent variable. Third, extraneous variables. Fourth, component variables. Fifth, conditioning or moderating variable. And the last one is confounding or interfering variable. Desirable characteristics of hypothesis. The simplest possible explanation of a specific phenomenon or relationship. An ideal hypothesis should possess several other characteristics, including the following. First, generalizability or universality. Second, compatibility with existing knowledge. Third, testability. Fourth, unvariability. And the last one is causality. Validity and reliability. As one develops and conducts a research study, one should always be concerned with its validity and reliability. Validity is a multi-faceted word or concept. Generally speaking, research is considered to be valid when the conclusions are true, and reliable when the findings are repeatable. But validity and reliability are actually requirements for both the design and the measurement of research. Regarding the design, the researcher should ask whether the conclusions are true. Regarding the design, the researcher should ask whether the conclusions are true or valid, and repeatable or reliable. Regarding the design, the researcher should ask whether the conclusions are true or valid, and repeatable or reliable. There are three types of validity. First, internal validity. Second, construct validity. And the last is external validity. Validity in measurement. The extent to which an instrument measures that it is designed to measure indicates the level of validity of the measure. Data collection instruments may be high in reliability and low in validity or vice versa. Reliability and research design. If the design of a research study is reliable, then its findings should be repeatable or replicable and generalizable beyond the one study. Exact replication of the study, including specific procedures, can be made to assess the reliability of the design. Reliability in measurement. Research requires that one be able to measure concepts and construct represented variables, which often are translated into or operationally defined as a set of categories or as methods for assessing the reliability or stability of measurement techniques. Test correlation. When the researcher employs this technique, he or she uses the same data collection instrument to observe or collect scores twice for this group of subjects. Average item total correlation, in which item score is correlated with the total score and the coefficients are averaged. With a technique called the average inter-item correlation, which is correlated with very other items, and the average of the coefficients represents a measure of internal consistency and indicates how well the items all measure this construct. Reliability also can be expressed into terms of the standard error of measurement, which is an estimate of how often one can expect errors or a given size. It is calculated with the following formula. ESM stands for standard error of measurement, SD stands for standard deviation of scores, and R stands for reliability coefficient. A small standard error of measurement indicates high reliability and precision. Scale. The American Heritage Dictionary defines scale as a progressive classification of size, amount, importance, or rank, a relative level of degree. There are generally considered to be four types of measurement scales. First, the nominal or categorical scale consists of two or more named categories into which objects, individuals, or responses are classified. Second, Ordinal scale. The relative position of objects or individuals with respect to a characteristics with no implication as to the distance between positions. Third, interval scale. Provides a ranking of position as does the ordinal scale, but the intervals of measurements are equal. And the last one is precious scale. Comparable to the interval scale except that it has an absolute zero below which values cannot occur.